So those of you who you listen to the show and follow my emails and get my tweets and follow me on Facebook at Tea Party Talk with Tom Z and all that stuff, you know that this week we had a big problem with Senator Rob Portman. And it all kind of settles around this thing we've been talking a lot about, which is this race in Mississippi between Tad Cochran and Chris McDaniel. And last week, Tad Cochran's people held a press conference. Excuse me, not Cochran, but Chris McDaniel's people held a press conference. And basically, they said that the racial attacks by the Cochran campaign put back the Republican Party's race relations with black voters, put it back 50 years. And I agree with that. I think what happened in Mississippi is an affront to all Americans, all Tea Party people particularly, because they basically confirmed every negative stereotype the left has been trying to paint us with for 5 years. And then the Republican Party turns around and says, we're racist, we're members of the Ku Klux Klan, we're trying to keep blacks from voting. All this stuff is wrong. That's just flat out a lie. And they did that to win a victory for a rhino establishment, Tad Cochran, over a Republican. Not some guy who's a Tea Party guy that was a machinist somewhere, said, I'm going to run for Senate, but a guy who's a Mississippi senator, and Chris McDaniels, okay, who stood with the party and has worked with the party. All right? This is some guy that hates the Republican Party, and yet they did that to him. So that was bad enough. But what really got me last week and caused this controversy with Senator Rob Portman was that Senator Portman then had a story in the Cleveland Plain Dealer, because a story came out last week that said that 7 senators had given money, and Rob Portman was one of them, to help fund this campaign to run these racially charged radio ads and to put out these flyers. Okay, and it was reported by a blogger down there that Rob Portman had given $25,000 from his PAC to run these ads, and that was just really upsetting to me. That was really upsetting to me. But I understood, and the case that the Portman campaign will make is that yes, they gave money, and the senators give money to other senators' campaigns all the time. And the case they'll make is really important, and that is that when they give money, they have no control over how the PAC they give it to spends it. And folks, that's true. I'm not upset about that. I'm not arguing that. I'm really not even arguing that Senator Portman gave the money to the Cochran campaign. What I'm upset about is what Rob Portman did after this. First of all, he didn't speak out and defend the Tea Party after this happened. He didn't stand up and say, they're not racist. They don't want to keep blacks from voting. They're not part of the Ku Klux Klan. He did not defend us. He didn't say a word until he was fingered as one of the people that was given the money. All right? So that's the first problem I have. But then he releases this statement to the Plain Dealer where Portman told the Plain Dealer that he absolutely disapproves of the ads run by the Cochran campaign. As the NRSC finance chair, I am working to secure a Republican majority in the fall, and I support Senator Cochran's reelection, he said in a statement. My PAC donated money to the Mississippi PAC, also supporting his election, but I had absolutely no discretion over how that money would ultimately be spent. In fact, I believe using race as a political issue, as these ads apparently did, was wrong. But then he says, all who believe our country is headed in the wrong direction under the failed policies of the Obama administration, including Tea Party activists and more moderate Republicans, must come together and take back the Senate and put our country back on the right track. So let me get this straight. We're in a campaign, and Tom Zawistowski and the Tea Party is supporting Chris McDaniel. And the Republican Party, and again, they want to make the case that Tad Cochran didn't really do this, and they didn't really do it. Somebody they just don't know did it. But that's bull. They know who did it, and they know where the money came from, and the money came from Republican supporters. Because otherwise, if it was from Democrats, they would have been telling the blacks to vote for Chris McDaniel. You know why? Because they feel it would be easier to beat McDaniel. But those ads didn't say that. Those ads said vote for Tad Cochran. So they were definitely run by the Republican Party. So now I'm supporting Chris McDaniel. This other PAC is supporting Tad Cochran. And you go on the radio and you make phone calls to my black friends and people in the community who know me and say, well, Tom Zawistowski has been lying to you. He's really a member of the Ku Klux Klan. And he wants to keep you from voting. And they want to set you back to the 1950s because they never believed you should have the right to vote in the first place. How dare you? How dare you do that? But then for Senator Portman to turn around and say, you know, Tom, yeah, that was pretty bad. And what he said in his quote, it was wrong. But because he's a Republican, you should support Tad Cochran. Well, I think not. I don't think we should support Tad Cochran, and we're not going to support Tad Cochran. And the latest polls show that 81% of the people who voted for McDaniels aren't going to support Tad Cochran. But here's my point, Senator Portman. What are you doing supporting Tad Cochran? What are you doing? You talk about in your quote that, the people were upset about the direction of our country. You know what direction of our country we're upset about? The immorality of it, the underhandedness of it, the corruption of it, Senator Portman. And you are in a unique position to do something about it. In 2012, when Akins in Missouri misspoke about rape, okay, and that was wrong, and he said something that was really stupid, and the Republican Party totally abandoned him, disowned him, defunded him, and actually made it possible for a Democrat to win a Senate seat. Now, Tad Cochran, those guys didn't misspeak. It wasn't a single quote. They planned. They spent $100,000. They spent days doing this despicable act of fooling and lying to black people and disparaging the name of good, honest, hard-working, God-fearing, patriotic Americans who are in the Tea Party. That's not misspeaking. So why, Senator Portman, isn't the Republican Party going to do to Cochran what they did with Akins? So I sent out a press release this week demanding that Senator Portman withdraw his support for Cochran and basically tell Cochran, you got to step down and get behind Chris McDaniel, who is a Republican, who is a true conservative, and who deserves the Republican Party's support, and to prove, Senator Portman, that you can provide moral leadership. And if you don't do that, Senator Portman, then you're condoning immoral actions, and you're part of the corruption, and you're a crony capitalist, and you don't care about the people. You don't care about the Tea Party unless you stand up and defend us. And I demand that you do that now. Get out there and make a statement and tell Tad Cochran he's done, because we don't have a place in our government or in the Republican Party for racists and race baiters and people would do such a despicable act. And those of you who listen to this show, I want you to call Senator Portman at 202-224-3354. Call his office, 202-224-3354, and ask him if he's going to denounce Tad Cochran and defend the Tea Party. Ask him if he's going to provide moral leadership. 202-224-3354. And let's see if he's a man or a mouse. We had some other